r/AskReddit. What does the United States get right? My personal list: sandwiches, barbecue, cereal, soda, fried chicken, pancakes and waffles, movies and TV, national parks, theme parks, friendly people. Americans seem to think they're not friendly. But every time I visit the US I am surprised by how nice everyone is. Not just service staff but also random strangers. Grocery stores being open past 10 p.m. Music. Obviously. Scientific research. GPS. If you use it, it is most likely US Sats. GPS is the largest constellation. Free public toilets everywhere you go. It's kind of a culture shock to go to a different country to have to pay money to use the restroom. It's a necessity. I would rather people be allowed to use the restroom rather than do their business outside. Air conditioning. Movies. TV series. TV shows. Musics. They are pretty good at entertainment. US won the Cold War thanks to its powerful entertainment industry. People around the world started to like US culture. National parks. Great streets and neighborhood is some things which I love in the US. I've never been there but I love US. I think they have great country whatever it happens. Maybe their politics sucks, which is same in my country, but I think they can handle that. They don't have any problem which cannot be fixed. I love Americans and what they do. I wish I lived or visited there. I'd like to visit Disneyland, Yosemite NP, great beaches and many places, etc. I know inflation is rising there, but I think this can be handled in couple of years. US is the biggest economy in the world. I'd like to go there and find a job there. Maybe I rent some cute house and live there. That'd be awesome. I love you, Americans. I send my greetings to all of you. Sorry my English. I am not pro at that yet. Have a great day. A great space exploration. So proud of my country for that. I remember hearing a brown British man speak once and he said something along the lines of people in the UK are nice. But you never truly feel like you're one of them. In America, if you call yourself American, then you're really American. I think we might be the single country on earth where there is no one stereotype of how we look or act or are. We really are a melting pot. Do we have a problem with racists? Yes. Of course. But they're a minority and overrepresented in the media. And the fact is that current-day America is one of the only moments both in history and now where so many different types of people are able to live together in the same communities so peacefully and harmoniously. Films, don't get me wrong. The US can put out some bad films. But the ones I've seen are usually American. Since I live in a semi-rural area, I can go out to my property and do pretty much whatever I like. I can raise most any animals I like and as many as I like. I can make as big of a garden as I like and ride all of the ATVs I want and shoot whatever type of firearm I like plus tons more, and all without needing to have any kind of permit. Public restrooms. The US has free restrooms in most public parks, transit stations, city, government buildings, etc. Hell, most private businesses let you use the restrooms. If you ask nicely. Europe, on the other hand, have pay toilets out in public. I completely understand why. But I can't imagine digging for money when you really need to drop a dooker. I know not everyone will agree with this. But I think Americans are the nicest people in the world. I have a web shop selling accessoires I designed myself to assist cats with certain medical conditions to eat better out of an existing microchip feeder. I'm located in Europe, but half my customers are American. My experience is that American people are by far the nicest. They leave the best genuine reviews. They leave very sweet private messages, and if I ever made a mistake they were very forgiving and understanding. Even though there are people living here who are hateful. The vast majority of Americans appreciate and celebrate diversity. Compare that to countries that are homogeneous. In general, they can be extremely bigoted. The United States adopts more children than the rest of the world combined. How friendly people are. Don't get me wrong, there's ton of friendly cultures. And even plenty more hospitable ones than the US. But the sheer level of openness in and genuine friendliness is something else in the US. Honestly? The people. We see a lot of crazy shit on Reddit from America. But every country has its crazies. My wife and I got married in Vegas. It was gloriously cheesy and the absolute best time ever. The amount of people that congratulated us was unreal. I'll never forget the woman that said, "You look gorgeous, sugar," to my wife. Proper core memory. I remember seeing a similar question and saw this comment that stood with me. I went to an elementary school once. All the kids were different colors and different cultural appropriation. And they all get along well and laugh together. It was beautiful, something like that. Steak and slow-cooked barbecue. Honestly, some of the nicest people I've ever met were Americans. Americans also love their country so much. Perhaps a bit too much at times, but no one chance Canada at our events. Accessibility code for buildings. I come from a country where disability is looked upon like a crime or fault. USA does an amazing job making things accessible. I haven't seen all of USA, but majority of the places has amazing system. We needed this. Aussie here. I think entertainment. Everyone talks shit about the US. But then spend most of their time listening to American music. Film and TV. Edit. So this comment blew up. I'm stoked. My biggest comment ever is showing some international love. I love that in the US if you go back to school at 40 or 50, no one blinks an eye. If you get a degree at 80 or 90, you are a total hero. In many cultures you need to be done with school in your 20s. No one goes to school later in life. Breakfast food. Many things. The give it your best shot, and if it fails, not to worry. Try again mentality is great. I think it's part of the reason the US has been so innovative on so many fronts. As an American, entertainment hands down. Honestly. Our food. Ignoring the weird people who don't season. Due to being so multinational, we have access to so many different types of food from all over the world. I can go 10 minutes and get pho from a short Vietnamese man who I'm pretty sure only survives on pure anger of being alive. Then 5 minutes away I can get some of the best barbecue I've ever had. 5 minutes in another direction and it's breakfast all day. US military? Don't get me wrong, they spend a lot, but it's about the same percentage of their GDP as most countries. Holy shit, you don't want to mess with that. Air conditioning. I am currently on vacation in Italy and everywhere is so hot. Americans just don't get enough love for being broadly nice as fuck people. I've traveled the USA quite a bit and almost everywhere you go someone will strike up a convo and have a laugh. Apparently USA is a great place, just shitty on Reddit. Cultural acceptance. I know people like to shit on the US, but honestly in many other countries you can immigrate in. You'll always be the foreigner. Aside from a small minority of assholes. Most Americans accept and even appreciate diversity. Everyone can come to the US and become American regardless of origin. I love that. Edit. Heck, this took off. I am also not saying that the US has no racism or bigots. No society is perfect. I am only speaking from my own experiences in a city environment, as well as being from a family of immigrants myself. There's such a large music culture there. Even the AVG buskers are often on a crazy high level. It's actually crazy. So many people there seem to get brought up with music, singing and or playing an instrument. Across all sub-cultures too. From country and pop to gospel, soul and blues. I am actually slightly jealous. Argentinian here. I love Argentinian barbecue, but Americans also do it very well. Edit. Really makes me happy how many people also enjoy Argentinian barbecue. Our public libraries are a real backbone for the country. Andrew Carnegie's groundwork in building the institution of free libraries, even in small towns, set a precedent that we wouldn't fathom today but couldn't live without. They often serve not only as an information exchange but as cultural hub. Art gallery, performing arts center, tax aid, voter registration, job resources, etc. in communities. Plus, they're one of the only places you can just exist for hours indoors without the expectation you must buy something, and I feel like they've adapted to the ever-changing needs of their patrons in modern times faster in the US than most places. Asterisk, a library outranks any other one thing a community can do to benefit its people. It is a never-failing spring in the desert. Andrew Carnegie. Garbage disposals in the sink, large refrigerators, water pressure when taking a shower. No-pay toilets. I say this as an immigrant who came to this country, so perhaps take it with a grain of salt. But it truly gives people a second chance at life. My life would be nowhere near as good as it is right now if I were back in my home country. Ranch flavor. We make top-notch toenail clippers. The US is an absolute science powerhouse. The technology we come out with has touched the lives of nearly every person on the planet. The US postal system, it's the most far-reaching postal system in the world. We will deliver nearly anything to any mailbox. Do you live in the bottom of the Grand Canyon? Say no more. Postal donkeys. Valuing actual wilderness in places like national parks, and NBSP. Here in England, they will restore or create natural habitats, which is sort of nice. But they are almost like zoos. They are too small to survive by themselves, so they are actively maintained. And in some English national parks, they actually allow housing developments as long as the architectural design is sympathetic. Here, countryside means farms and NBSP. There is still a notion in the USA of protecting some large wilderness areas from development. There are a ton of things wrong with universities here, but you can't deny that we got some top-notch research institutions. I have lived abroad for 10 years now. When I travel back to the US, there are two things that I am always ecstatic about: drinkable tap water and donuts. Although our healthcare system sucks, our pharmaceutical R&D is amazing and has produced so many medicines that have helped people worldwide. I'm surprised no one has mentioned the interstate system. Being able to connect every major city in the United States is quite an achievement that has allowed us to transport goods all across our large country. Also, the way the interstates are correlated to what part of the US they are in was a really good idea, as they are easier to remember for long trips. I-10, I-20, I-30. By understanding how the interstates are numbered and having a rough idea of US geography, I can easily drive to many large cities without having to use a map. The bonus of rest areas and signage with gas stations and restaurants at every exit is something that I also feel is highly underrated. Aggressive self-determinism. Oh, your parents were abusive and you don't talk to them anymore? Fuck yeah. Rad. Good for you. Your partner couldn't give you the relationship you dreamed of having. Alright. Rad. Move on up. You hated your job and think your future is in being a movie star? Alright. You do you. Send me a premiere ticket. Entertainment in general. You guys know how to put on a show. I may be biased because I'm American, but I am well traveled. I have to say Delhi. Most peoples around the world have no concept of NY-style Jewish Delhi. And thus what a sandwich could be. Public lands. Between Federal Government Park Service, Forest Service, Bureau of Land Management, Fish and wildlife lands in various state and local public lands. There are several 100 million acres of opportunity for recreation like hiking, camping, birdwatching, biking, skiing, hunting, fishing, sightseeing, or whatever you like to do to enjoy nature. Nobody bats an eyelid in the US if you decide to change your career or not follow in the career footsteps of your ancestors, compared to other more traditional, longer established countries where they are a little more conservative and staid when it comes to career choices. In spite of everything, immigration and integration, there's a reason why so many people still immigrate to US instead of Europe, where everything is supposedly better. As an expat in Germany, I can tell you that in most places here, expats are only tolerated. Don't get me wrong. People will be nice and polite to you. However, in order to be a part of society, you have to pretty much let go of your own culture and embrace the local culture. You can't be a proud American or Asian or Indian and hope to integrate in an European, German society with ease. Heck, I have spoken with a few second-generation nationals, and in spite of being born and brought up here, they don't feel like Germans because in many cases, exclusion starts from school. On the other hand, I know a few people from my home country who migrated to the US and they have never faced the same integration challenges that you see in Europe. Children of immigrants born in US feel completely American unless they have parents who themselves exclude from integration. Science and technology. MIT is incredible, and the scientific research the US produces is just incredible. The James Webb Telescope is just one recent example of hundreds. The US has around as many Nobel Prizes in physics as the rest of the world combined, I believe. Or at least close. No other country comes close. We're the nation that created Shrek. That's all I need to say. Gas stations like Quick Trip, where they have clean bathrooms, lighted parking lots, free air for your tires, 10 different coffees on tap, beer, hot dogs, any soft drink or snack you want. The list goes on. In other countries, you're not gonna believe this, their gas stations only sell gas. Women's sports. Growing up and loving sports, I always admired how the states took women's sports seriously. The equality with that always seemed better. Even down to the athletic wear available in stores. Pop culture. Calling out our own problems. Everything you see about how bad America is would not be tolerated in places like China or Russia. Our city road designs suck, but the interstate system is pretty smart. Constant uninterrupted traffic flow for freight and cross-country travel. Military logistics. Sports. The U.S. has created some of the world's best athletes in a wide variety of sports. Handicap accessibility. Most people probably don't realize this. But when you go overseas, particularly to older cities, it can be extremely difficult for people with disabilities to get around. Here, every new building has to meet certain accessibility standards, and many old ones have been retrofitted. Traffic lights on the other side of the road. Parades. I watched a New Year's parade from London that had the marching band from my daughter's HS. The high school marching band was the highlight of the entire parade. There were groups of people from council, housing, wandering down the street. They just showed me how good, comparatively, an American parade can be. Immigration. A lot is made of anti-immigrant sentiments in the United States. But the reality is that no one accepts more immigrants than the United States. And that is a large part of why the United States is so economically successful. The U.S. remains the most desirable market in the world. And anyone can move to the U.S. and participate in that market. Free speech. I can get arrested for saying certain opinions in my country. Ice in your glass. Lots of ice in your glass. Enough to make your drink ice cold. It's like the rest of the world has no refrigeration. attitude to getting it fucking done, and, when it really matters, coming together as a community to help each other out with zero regard to race, age, gender, economic situation, political leanings or any of that other shit that doesn't matter. Source: I'm a Brit that lived through Hurricane Harvey and witnessed just how incredible human beings can be to one another. Cafes and restaurants open between 2 and 5 p.m. Automatic complimentary water at cafes and restaurants. Free public restrooms. National parks. They do jazz very, very well. As an American, it makes me happy that not everyone on Reddit is a "Wow America bad fascist dictatorship." I would rather live in North Korea. Person. University towns. I love the fact that many of the big universities are not in the big urban centers. It obviously makes for a fun and memorable undergraduate experience and can create really strong communities and local economies. But more importantly, it's huge for driving innovation. If you have to sink your whole R&D budget into paying scientists, engineers, etc. to live in a high cost of living area, then you can't do as many cool projects. Libraries. One of the most underutilized and underappreciated things in America. We may not have the strongest passport, but it's still a darn good passport to have, especially for traveling. The amount of choices at the grocery store. It can be overwhelming, but most other countries don't have nearly the same amount of options for something as simple as potato chips. National parks. NASA. Hiring strangers. We are very trusting in business relationships. In some ways, nepotism still rules, but it's much better here than in many countries. Second chances. A failure doesn't dishonor you forever. We use that as experience to do better next time. Edit. In matters of business and education. Not referring to criminal matters. As someone who was born in a country without democracy but has been fortunate enough to have lived in the U.S. for a few years, I can't even begin. A lot of Americans don't even know how lucky they are just being American. They are already better off than the majority of the world population, politics aside. Online shopping, free shipping and return, cheap gas, cheap and massive houses. Except the obviously expensive cities. Cheap domestic flights. Good interstate highways. Diverse landscapes. Abundance of produce. Abundance of opportunities in general. Etc. It's being big. Big enough to have a bit of everything and have plenty to explore. I've always envied your wildlife. I'm from England and the only large wild animals, other than fish, we have are deer, boar and foxes. And they're incredibly rare. I've always thought it was so cool one country could have bears, moose, cougars, alligators, panthers, bison, buffalo, etc. Moroccan here. But growing up I learned so much about America that made me want badly to settle there. 1. The pop culture and the accessibility to attend some concerts and events free of charge or at a cheap price. 2. The diversity of the food is exceptional. Asian, Arabic, African, Aussie, Latino. Every culture has its own food in the US. 3. The people are friendly. They can even say hi, you look gorgeous, I like your top or sunglasses without even knowing you. 4. The amount opportunities of professional growth is marvelous. You can go to school or work whatever you want as long as you qualified. Even if you are retired. Unlike us in Morocco. Like for example, they set limits for teaching exam in 30 years old. I mean, how's that fair? 5. National parks. Gardens. Forests, mountains, lakes, beaches, and everything related to nature. It's a heaven for campers and hikers. 6. Your culture has reached every place. I grew up watching American movies and TV shows and documentaries, listening to American singers and learning the American English. Like many other young people, it's quite fascinating the amount of good influence you have on the world. Our motion picture industry. Despite its criticisms, it has a global, cultural effect. Interstate highway system. Blows my mind that I can get pretty much anywhere I want down there, without having to take some crazy roundabout route and have ample places to stop in. Eat, bathroom, refuel. Also, most people in the USA actually follow the pass on the left, cruise right rule, which is a rarity here in Canada. Human rights to a certain degree. I am Chinese and I often hear stories my Chinese friends tell me from their work and think to myself, this can't be legal. Also, Asian countries in general is a hellhole for women. Any discussion of feminism Asian men would consider turning men and women against each other. It's also scary how Asian cultures just causally overlooks subtle pedophilia. While in the US being a pedophile will stain on you forever. Edit. I have never said the US is perfect. IDK where anyone got that from. Maybe read. Capitalism is evil and the government are hypocrites, but at least human rights is one of the things on the table. Disclaimer. I lived in both countries. Neither is without its own problems and flaws. This is just from my personal perspective. If you disagree, then swipe away. Save us both some time. So apparently I am hired to smear China. AOCIA or whichever anti-China organization hired me. I am still waiting for my paycheck. My broke ass could really use it. Return policies. In most major stores you can return items with no questions asked. Try returning something in Europe. Music. Ada is huge, and nowhere else in the world have I seen accessibility as we see in America. The rate of smoking cigarettes. We do very little well in the US when it comes to overall health. But we are light years better than most places when it comes to the prevalence of cigarette smoking. Hardcore anti-smoking ads plus laws of inconvenience plus social stigma really did work. Burgers. Motherfucking burgers. Subscribe for more content.